we come back to Opondo, government spokesman. 39 years of NRM seems like forever. Should we be happy? Should we be satisfied that we've had NRM? I look at some of the young people in the studio here. They are not 40 years old, so they don't know any other.
About 73% of Uganda's population are below 40. The UBOS census report, 73% of Uganda's population is below 40. That implies those 73%, maybe 72% were born under NRM. And when you look at the population growth from 16 million then in 86 to 45.9, call it 46 million. Thanks to the NRM, because that growth is not just having many children being born, but also living a relatively and increasingly qualitative life. If you look at the results of PLE released 2 days ago, we are now having 800,000 children sitting primary living examination. If you look at the last graduation of Makerere, many children. The girls, the females have consistently outstripped the boys. Oscar, you and I think Ocheno here, when we were doing Makerere, you could count the number of females in your course. Personally, I don't have any girl I was with in Mulanda Primary School doing P7 who transited to S1. Yes, in my class, no girl moved with us to secondary school. I think 2 went and did teacher training, and they have since fallen. In Egangeses, where I did my O and A level, we only have 3 girls, now 3 women. Justice Tibulia, who's now I think in the Supreme Court, or rather Court of Appeal or High Court. There's somebody called Elizabeth Kalimbe. She's now a consultant in environmental things. There's Sarah Namadiba in UNEB. I think she has now retired. Those are the only 3 girls. And that school was big. So, 39 years of NRM hasn't created trauma, as Mr. Cheno. When Ocheno left university together with me, 87, he fled. He went to UK because he said,
I fled from NRM.
He fled here and said, we are going to introduce communism. He was waiting for Bote's government to return. I am glad that he has returned on his own volition. These days we are with him in Nagongara. Yes, these days we are with him in Nagongara virtually every weekend. I find him in gumboots. He's doing some little farming, but more like a peasant. More like a peasant. So I am glad that Ocheno is back. That you couldn't have returned into trauma. I think the situation is much better. We may not have met all the expectations, but certainly Uganda is better. If you look at infrastructure, I've just said the last 1 week alone, I was in Kisoro. I came through Kabale, I drove through to Rukunjiri. I went to Kanungu, and I was teasing the Wachiga there in Kanungu. I said, you people, if it wasn't for NRM, the Wachiga had never seen a tarmac road, except the ones who had come to Kampala. Because when NRM came, the tarmac, I think, stopped in Mbarara.
When you talk to the president of Uganda, he can even tell you the mileage itself.
Yes. The tarmac.
And maybe in terms of mileage, it is not so good. Yeah, so that's why you're limiting yourself to tarmac.
From Ntungamu main junction, Rukungiri was a path, a village path. And now you go close to 86 kilometers up to Kanungu town. We now have the tarmac up to Araba. We have tarmac up to Moroto, and so on and so forth. So in terms of connectivity of the country, 39 years hasn't been in vain. And so is electricity. So are schools. You, Oscar, and I, we used to brag when we were in Makerere that Makerere was the best university south of the Sahara and north of the Limpopo. Ivory Tower, because it was the only university in the country. Today, the government universities, I think there are like 14. If you add the private ones, I know many people, if my brother Semujo was here, would say this is development around the world. But Congo, DRC does not have. Does not have. And so there's something worth celebrating, 39 years of continuity, and not just continuity, but continuity with changes, positive changes. And so for me, 39 years haven't been in vain, and what leader just talked about, security. Oscar, you know, yesterday I told you I would not be here because we have been having serious dry season in Kapelebiong where I'm doing farming. And that place people burn bushes. So I've been clearing the bushes, but also the rain started earlier than we anticipated. So I had dashed to Kapelebiong for this weekend to prepare for the rain season. And then I received the call to come back for an urgent meeting today with the plot one. I drove from Kapelebiong. I came to Rotororo and I arrived here about 1 a.m. I couldn't have done that if it wasn't. And I'm sure many of you do that. So for me, that tranquility, that serenity, that security, and nobody stops you. You drive from here up to Arua without finding maybe traffic waving you down if you are the suspect you have committed a traffic offense. So, and you find
thank you.
Trucks of merchandise. One of the reasons, yes, we have bad roads, but one of the reasons for the traffic jams, particularly as you enter Kampala, you find heavy-duty goods vehicles, meaning that actually the economy is working. Now, we need to tickle Ugandans to see the opportunities in this economy. Okay. Because while some people say the economy is bad, there are people making good money in this bad economy. So it means actually the people are crying that the economy is bad. They are not seeing the opportunities. And so 39 years.
Let's go to another NRM person, Katesh.
Well,
39 years of NRM.
39 years of NRM is worth celebration because we just need to look at the statistics and the parameters. The macroeconomic stability that has been experienced during the NRM rule had never happened in the history of Uganda. If you look at the real economic growth, since 1986 we have been averaging at 6.1%. You look at the economic expansion, in 1986 our GDP was 14.4 trillion. 14.4 trillion. Now you are talking of, in purchasing power parity terms, about $220 billion. Okay? That's a very huge, more than 10 times the economy has expanded. The per capita income 1986 when NRM came was just $260. Now we are talking of 1,014 as at last year's World Bank statistics. We have gone into the middle income. OO has talked about roads. 1986, we had only 8% of the paved roads. That's about 1,000 kilometers. Now we are looking at about almost 6,000 kilometers of paved roads. you look at power generation, we had 60 megawatts only in 1986 of power. Under NRM, we are now talking of over 2,600 megawatts. Our biggest problem now is absorption. We are about 2,000, not 2,600. We at peak capacity, we are consuming, we have surplus of about 9,960 megawatts. So there is success. It creates other problems which you must deal with as government. For example, how we evacuate this power and make sure people are connected. We had only 20 districts that were connected on national grid in 1986. Now we are talking of over 160. Even if you look at other factors like life expectancy, it was around 43%. In terms of factories, 1986, the count of factories in the whole country was only 80 factories. Now we are talking of over 6,000 factories. Foreign direct investment, virtually no one was bringing money here in the country. We are now talking of about, I think as at last year's statistics, about $3 billion. Even when you look at exports, we were exporting about less than $1 billion. Now we are talking of $7 billion exports. So if you look at the indicators of whether it is macroeconomics, whether it is social indicators, there has been significant change in this country for Ugandans. That is without mention that the questions that we have, could we have grown better? Maybe should we be celebrating 6.1% or we should be celebrating 8%? Okay?
There's a Norman Magembe on X says, could you please stop celebrating the basics? If you claim to be middle income, please sound like middle income.
Those ones are not informed. They need to look at our neighbors. You know what? Those who say we celebrate basics should look at the neighbors we have had in this continent. No, not even South Sudan.
I'm looking at the neighbors.
No, just look at the whole of sub-Saharan country, sub-Saharan continent. So
you're most welcome to gang, Honorable Katabusa.
So Oscar, for me,
thank you, but not that I've just walked in.
No.
For me, Oscar, we should be celebrating what we have achieved. What those people say they are basic achievement, they do not know, and I think it is our duty to be able to tell the story. But we should acknowledge the challenges that we have and ask ourselves whether we can do better than we have done. And I think there is room for us to do better if we minimize some of the incompetencies and leakages and some weaknesses around. And those ones, we should not be shy to talk about them. Even as NRM, we should be able to have a discussion and say, at the rate at which we are developing, can't we even achieve 8% if we are disciplined? If people who are in offices can do better, can't we be more competent to improve the lives of Ugandans even much better? That's a discussion we should be having, and we should not shy away, but we should acknowledge that we have made good trends. And my friend here should not say that 39 years of misery, because he should tell us the misery, whether the economy has grown negative, and whether Uganda is worse off than he left it when he ran. If it was misery, he would not have come back.
Thank you, Katesh. Let's go to Lydia, the other NRM gangster today.
Oscar, you will have to protect me here.
I've just come, like O has said, I've just come from Bosoga also, the presidential monitoring and assessment to household income programs of government, and like the PDM is one of those. So looking at testimonies of farmers and knowing what else we can do. So this week it was for Bosoga sub-region. So while on it, I'm been able to come back and join the gang because of, again, peace. You can move anytime. You can go to the communities and engage people, and then we see which gaps there and how we can do better to contribute to the socio-economic transformation of our country. We've come a long story. Many of us, 39 years ago, we were not able to. We were young, really. I was not active. I was just joining secondary school. So I can say that most of my life that I can account for, it has been under NRM. But this is the government that I know. So I cannot assume, perceive some nice thing that these channels talk about, which I've never seen. I am an NRM child. When NRM came to power as a very young girl, just joining secondary school. So I joined what I've found in life, and I managed to contribute in my own space, because God does not promise us tomorrow. You can be waiting for better things and you don't live there. Yesterday we were burying the mother of Honorable Gume, but also you know that your namesake passed away, David Opondo, a very good cadre from Tororo. So when you know that you do not be promised tomorrow by God, you contribute where you are now, maybe on whichever side you are. But I think for me, I want to contribute to the government that is in power now and make my contribution while I'm still alive. My father, the late Jacob Wanyoto, was a very strong UPC stalwart. But those were his times. These UPCs came and took over his funeral. The big people, the late Sogwal, they came. But that was his time. And if NRM had not taken over power, we were part of the first family. I was in Obote's first family. Why? My auntie married a Dokwene. But that was for another day. Now I'm no longer in the line of the first family, but I survive. So Katutu don't talk, because I think you are like me. Our parents are part of the strong UP system. So you cannot talk about so much the past. We have to live today and move on to tomorrow. So that's my thinking, Oscar. And for tomorrow, it's good to have a day that you take stock, because even UPC had the Nyamurunga Day in Bushenyi. So it's good to have a day to take stock, but also pick challenges and see how best you can deal with the challenges. 39 years ago, there are those young people that I think O was describing that had challenges of that time, especially peace and security. Uganda is a land-connected country. If you look at our neighbors, it's very easy to spill into conflict, but we've managed to keep our small space in the country. Up north, south, even on the other sides, we are a staple island that can do business, that can connect our countries, being land connected. Trucks and goods are driving through Gatuna, through Nimuli, up South Sudan, through the DRC, and we are here with stability, with the program now of looking at household income, tackling the challenges of poverty. If there are any other challenges, we put them on the table and then let's pass the battle. Leadership is about passing the battle. If people think that NRM 39 years is too long, why are you? We pass over, you get the battle and you run the country, because for sure, as day follows the night, we are not going to be here forever. None of us will be here, but there will be Ugandans, and Uganda will be here. Okay. So that everybody makes a contribution. Those that fought for independence made their contribution, and I don't know how many Oscar you can count who are still around. Maybe their families, but we have men and women that said Uganda must be independent. Oh, in the 1960s we were not there. Now in the 80s we have been ruled with an iron hand. There's a gunfire. We've silenced the guns, but there are certain guns which are not. There's a poverty gun now that is feeding us. So how do we deal with the other challenges that are bedeviling our country, and we make that contribution? Because for sure 10, 15 or 30 years from now, like I've said, no, God never promises us tomorrow. You do your best when you wake up in the morning and you have the breath.
Thank you.
That's what I want. And for tomorrow I'll be in Mubende.
Yeah, you've said
be part of the community that is honoring this day.
Okay. Joseph, we cross over.
At the beginning, I intended to be very nice, as always. And I sought to not let you down.
Did you say as always?
Yes, sir.
Right.
And I sought to make sure that I didn't disappoint you about optimism of and within UPC and indeed this country. I must say that Lydia does extremely well in balancing her past, which quite clearly did not start in 1986, and the present. Opondo is a fantastic peer person for this regime, and I've said so. And Opondo, in normal times, I always keep on saying, and I'm delighted that once upon a time, and this is deliberately knowing that people are listening, including your senior guys in government, that you're one of their best resources. So you do very good peer work for them.
No,
that said,
my country, I don't do for them.
that said, from your submissions, we can do the statistics, except we do not have the time. Between independence in 1962 and 1971, the economic turnaround in this country, to the extent that within only the first 3 years of independence, we saw a transfer in terms of economic ownership for the African peoples, meaning the indigenous Ugandans, from 12% in 1962 to 35% in 1965, within 3 years. These are the kind of indices that we should be talking about. We talk about education. Lydia, as early as 1963, there was a deliberate program to expand not only education post-independence, but to create girl-child institutions that included Toro Girls, Nabisunsa, Wanyange, et al. Across the country. So the deliberate reality is that Opondo realizes that actually at Mulanda PS, he did not have, it does not remember, young girls. Does not really add up, but it's not about a competition of figures and numbers, but I'm giving context. I was lucky that I studied in St. Joseph's Nagongera, which was basically a boys' school. The number of top grade ones that went to top schools across the country was commensurate with the number of girls at Sesera Girls, Nagongera Girls, the next adjacent Girls Secondary School. So if it's about these figures about education, really knowing very well that PLE results came, and the only government girls' school, secondary school leading in my booklet with Opondo is Nagongera Girls, simply because it's a convent school. If you look at the figures, people in Tororo, people in Bukedi today are celebrating Division 2s, and they call that progress. Now, in my year, myself and a colleague, the person who followed me in order, we went to Mwiri. I don't know how many others went to top schools. So Ofon and I were discussing before coming on air what we can do, and people also need to know that, yes, once in a while, including with Ofon, we discuss genuine things about the growth and development of our people, and we're wondering how is it that we can seek to grow our Toro. But we're not going to grow our Toro without direct investment in public education. Now, as far as infrastructure is concerned, it is official. My Toro district has not had one single extra road completed, tarmacked, since NRM came in 39 years ago, except the old Busia road, which is being worked on but is not yet complete. So it's one road in my Toro district. It is also not inaccurate to suggest that the tarmac between here and Kegezi did not exist. No, I traveled up to Kabale. The only road that was waiting to be completed was Kabale Katuna Road, and it was already on program. In my own home, Nagongera, tarmac was supposed to have been complete in 1989. Wajamu Fondo, Tororo Nagongera, Tororo Mulanda Buwesa Road was on program for 1989. So we can go on and on and on about this. So that is purely as far as education is concerned, and education is the number one equalizer. The only reason why I'm on this panel is not because of 39 years of NRM. It was because UPC deliberately worked on a program to enable possibilities for children across this country. By the way, in 1970, the best sub-region in education, PL results, was Bukedi. Do you know what? Followed by Karamoja. Education as an equalizer.
Really?
Oh, yes. And check your figures on that. Followed by Karamoja, and I think the next one was, Teso, actually, and I think Kigezi and Busoga. The worst performers was then East Mengo plus others. That is within 8 years. And again, some information for phone. In 1972, the best pupil in the whole of the country in primary living came from Mahanga Primary School. Now, that was a newly built government primary school which had only hardly taken 8 years. I'm talking about a government that invests across the country invests in the ordinary citizens of our country. Extraordinarily, Opondo is celebrating the trucks that he found on the road. No, in 39 years, NRM found train networks which are dead. NRM found public transport bus networks which are dead. UPC within 8 years, in fact 6 years, took train services from Soroti to Lira to Gulu to Pakwash, including Pakwash Bridge. Do you know the national grid only entered West Nile officially within the last 12 months? We can go on and on and on and on this. Do you know 39 years of NRA, we should contextualize it. In 1987, that was 18 months after these guys came to power. That is when I was sent into exile. I didn't go into exile. I was sent in exile from Makere. So that is 18 months, so you can assume that is about 1983. So if you've been in power for 2 years and you're still chasing away little boys and girls from Makere University simply because they don't agree with you, that is not peace and security. And then between 1986, stability only returned to northern Uganda after nearly 20 years. And Lydia and Katesh, you guys should begin to appreciate some of us who fought and at the same time persuaded, pushing Museveni and his external backers to bring stability, including ending the war in northern Uganda, meaning peacefully. So it's not 39 years of peace. As far as insecurity is concerned, good enough, Lydia, I was an adult enough because I hit 18 by the time these guys came. There was never insecurity in Bali before NRA came. There was never insecurity in Soroti before NRA came. There was never insecurity in Masaka before NRA came. There was never insecurity in Barrow before NRA came. Insecurity, particularly during Obote 1 and Obote 2 government, particularly Obote 2 government, was simply because these NRA bandits were in the bushes of Luweero and they were throwing bombs here in Kampala. That was the time when we got insecure. So in context, including in our own Pathola of Opondo, our parliamentary candidate, just for the record, Odo Chwale was killed. And a number of people in Tororo relate that with the government. But Odo Chwale was a member of UFM and was killed in armed combat. That does not apply anywhere else. It's a very sad thing.
How about the town clerk of Sudo? Was also in combat?
Those ones, I don't know the details about the Sudos, but I'm just giving contextual examples. But for anybody, actually, after 39 years, to think that Kizza Besigye is in jail, to think that somebody is threatening to hang Robert Chegulin, after 39 years, and we're talking about democracy and rule of law, I don't know what we can. So, no, you guys need to have a sense of humility to say that, look, you've tried, you fought, we checked you guys, and by then my return from exile was when we fought competitively for return to multipartyism. And as soon as the Constitutional Court nullified Article 269 of the Constitution, it meant that I had to return to my country with absolute authority of President Obote coming to say, let's rebuild this country, let's go through the democratic process rather than the process of the gun. And that's basically the context. And Opondo, you need to be thanking me because you know one thing, in the unlikely event that we went to the bush, particularly in the mid-90s, had UPC gone to the bush across the country, including the relatives of Leader Wanyuto, these NRA guys would not be in power. We simply thought that, no, this country had suffered enough. And we needed to make sure that, well, we give it time and go through a democratic process.
As I usually say, it's the most optimistic, Joseph. I'm not sure you'd have one as UPC going into the bush in the 90s.
But first of all, they were in government and they were chased.
No, we were.
Collapsed.
No, we.
How can you say he would have
Actually, for the record, you can imagine that we're in government for 4.5 years, and for the 4.5 years, Obote took government. While these guys were actually brutalizing Uganda, we opened up secondary schools, we opened up primary schools, we opened up universities, including preparations for Barra School, University of Science and Technology.
Thank you.
The economy was working. The economy was working. The government was working. This economy is working for Mr. Museveni and a few handfuls of his people.
Joseph, thank you. Let me go to our guest here, Honorable Midday, 39 years of. And Joseph speaks so well of his faction of UPC, and I don't know whether you will say that his.
I don't have a faction. There's only one UPC, but some people in UPC are busy dining. But good luck to them.
Whether his engine was also stalled.
When I walked in, my young brother Mbid was talking about the engine taken away. So then I said, okay, now let me hear the shock absorbers.
was maybe the UPC engine was also taken away.
The shock absorber is in the studio.
So
The whole chassis of UPC.
yes, also went.
Yeah.
Bambi. So, and that accounts to generally the 39-year performance
Well,
of the NRM government. Of course, we are going to make a mistake if, in terms of assessment of performance of government, we are comparing it with the Uganda's former self. My take would be, let us make comparisons with other countries. Because if you compare, for example, my intelligence capacity with the kind of wisdom I possessed during primary school, in my opinion, that comparison would be a logical impossibility. Let us benchmark, let us find out. 39 years uninterrupted. Because you see, when you hear our colleagues here talking about roads constructed, when we have a majority of Ugandans born after 1990, they actually, the achievements of NRM compared to what it was by the time it took power for 39 years to Ugandans of below 25 years of age sounds academic. They grew up seeing the roads. So they actually do not know what these people are talking about. They grew up hearing, they found FM stations, they found everything. So let us look at good governance. And for me, I do not want to look at good governance in terms of the existence of political parties, existence of elections, periodical. Because we have countries with democracy, like Somaliland, for example, but struggling to be countries. We have good governance in countries that have no elections in the Middle East, and that's where we run to. Our young people run to for jobs. Then we have countries with the periodical elections like Uganda, but without a democracy to talk about. So we must now be assessing in comparison with other, of course, countries. When our colleagues talk about foreign direct investment, then why don't we address it qualitatively? One, what are the flaws? Because if we establish foreign direct investment in an area, one, where Uganda has a direct access to a foreign market, then Uganda becomes majorly a roundabout of resources other than a stopover. Two, if you allow foreign direct investment in the food sector, then we are missing out on establishing a robust indigenous-based economy. So what I want is to make a qualitative analysis and assessment. Why? Because there are countries whose quotas are closed for export purposes. For example, in the US and AGOA. Now, if you invite those countries to establish investments here, give them our land, in fact, unvalued land, because the president thinks that actually, when Thailand investors come here for agricultural purposes, they are helping Uganda, which is not the case. They are actually running away where they are unwanted. Land-intensive investments in Thailand are no longer really required. So they run here. And what happens, investment in the food sector is extremely out-competing the otherwise would have been an indigenous-based economy for indigenous Ugandans here. When you look at what used to happen, what happened in South Africa, the problem between Massmart and Walmart, when Walmart wanted to take over Massmart, people rioted. They said, no, we cannot allow a foreign direct investor to invest in the food market in South Africa. This is ours. So without that qualitative analysis, then we can't know where government is going right. Two, what is, for example, the cartel that we have established for a foreign direct investor who, in effect, his investment is going to be calculated in terms of the job market, for example. How many jobs have been produced? But the same investor who is Chinese comes to Uganda. He is the managing director. His relative, who is also Chinese, is the general manager. Now the cashier is actually daughter, who is also Chinese. What the Ugandans can be able to do is to be the one who's carrying the bells of what has been produced to the lorry. But even the person counting the bells is Chinese. So jobs created, but jobs taken by the same investors. Now, how are you going to assess? And clearly, this is why the labor external market is flourishing beyond repair. Because the only available job opening now for young people, for Gen Zs, is actually the Middle East.
And you have to invest to go there.
You have to.
Well,
now,
you need a minimum of what?
now,
4 million?
If you assess Uganda in terms of that, then there is a problem. Pardon? So what are we looking at? Establish. What are the tenets of good governance? What are the institutions? The institutions by nomenclature are established. But you see, when you stay longer in power, you run a risk of establishing very strong mechanisms for long stay. And clearly now what the government has done, with the institutions in place, it has choreographed a system of puppetry that now they are all led by their puppets, where the president is actually the puppet master now, operating them as muppets. Now, this is what we are looking at. So you find that all institutions are actually the question, and the president is the answer. All institutions, by the way, there are things we used to say that these are arms of government, but now they are his arms. All of them are his arms, and without question. So there is a problem. When you look at, because now people, one person asked me, by the way, we are about to get into elections. Elections are in 2026. I said, no, 2026 is voting in January. Elections are this year, but people are not aware because they really have lost touch. They don't know even the effectual, whether elections are effectual anymore. Why? The person counting the votes is appointed by a candidate. And I can tell you, even when that person was, recently there was a rumor in the newspapers that actually the Electoral Commission has been changed. New persons had been appointed. I can tell you without mentioning any name that I was contacted as somebody who is believed to be a deputy president of a minister who is probably in charge. Is it true that these rumors are correct? By very serious people. They were, in fact, the kind of fear they were living in is whether or not they have lost their jobs. Now, tell me, at the confirmation that that was just a rumor, that celebration, I am telling you that they underwent, clearly gives credence to the kind of announcements that they will make. I am telling you.
So you are saying the parliament, the Muppet, the judiciary is the chief Muppet.
Then the puppet master is now pulling the strings. So I am telling you, that is what it is. If you want to assess that on account of good governance, then obviously the 39-year rule, they have managed to stay on, but not to work for long. And the achievements clearly can talk for themselves. So we need to be comparative in terms of, for example, before you mentioned that this road was constructed, let us look at one, the quality of roads index in Africa. Is Uganda mentioned in the first 10 countries? No. But Rwanda is mentioned as number 3. 2, the road connectivity in Africa. Is Uganda mentioned? No. Kenya is number 7. So let us assess, not in terms of what they have done, but how they have done it and compared to what others have done. Then you will assess their long stay. Is it effectual?
Yeah, but we have compared it to South Sudan.
Yes, recently I was in South Sudan, and you see, when they were driving me, I asked them, but what is happening to roads? The taxi person, the Uber, he actually told me that, yeah, by the way, but there is a good road there. It was last constructed when we became a country. So at the inauguration day, that is when those roads were constructed. To date, nothing has been added. If that is the comparison, like Honorable Katutu has said, yes, Honorable Opondo here will tell you they have done wonders. Because how else would they beat South Sudan if they haven't? So
let me put a pause on you, and we go to Honorable Katuntu. 39 years of NRM.
It's very difficult to come to a microphone after the Democratic Party shock absorber. But okay, I think we just need to put everything in context. And I don't want to take the path of chest thumping, but I also want to appreciate what has been achieved over the last 39 years, because we need to have a fair debate. And sometimes if you have the chest thumpers and then I don't know if I was Honorable Mbida, that word, I don't know, you don't have a very good word for it. Then you have those who are really, yes, then you have those who are just critics. Then we lose out on, we want to have a fair assessment, a critical fair assessment. In 1986, definitely, Uganda was around 16 million people. In 2024, Oscar, we are 46 million people.
And an NRM achievement?
Yes and no. Yes, there is natural growth. With or without NRM, we would certainly not be 16 million people. However, with some interventions NRM has made, it's possible, especially on life expectancy and so on, it's possible we have had an increase related to that. The economy, and listen to this, the economy of 16 million people cannot be the same economy of 46 million people. I mean, it's just purely common sense. The production of 16 million people cannot be the same production of 46 million people. If you are talking about, take for example, housing, because I don't want someone to say, you look everywhere there are houses. You know, if you are having 16 million people, how are you going to house them? And if you are having 46 million people, definitely you'll have an increase, a natural growth increase. Similarly, the roads of 16 million people and the roads of 46 million people. Similar about schools. If you are going to educate a population of 16 million people, you will have fewer schools than those who are going.
The road capacity.
No, actually, DRC, let me tell you a story. And you know, that's why also you should do. And I know you read, but sometimes you read the wrong things. DRC is a huge country in terms of geography. So what they decided is for them to invest more in airports. For example, if you had to move from Kinshasa to Goma, you will not have this road moving from Kinshasa to Goma or even other places and so on. But secondly, there is war, especially in the areas where you are talking about. So comparing that to Uganda, your argument is exactly the same thing we've been talking about, comparing Uganda to South Sudan, and for which you also got a little bit tensed up when it was brought. So don't compare eggs and not.
For the record, he did.
Yes, he did. No, but yes, it is part of it. By the way, you can even go worldwide. It is in contextual.
There are countries with smaller population, but they are producing much more than those.
No, they are not producing much more, but they could have natural resources of those countries. And I'll give you an example. If you are an oil producing country, you could have a smaller population, but you'd exploit, and then if you're looking at the figures, you'll think it is. But it's not. There are other countries. I'll give you an example.
South Korea?
No, I'm going to give you
Malaysia.
South Korea has oil?
Which one? They have decided to take other production out of population related. But I'll give you an example. Take for example India. Take for example China. Take for example Mexico. And you can go on and on. Development and population are related. And you can have, that's why today, if you are looking at the trajectory, India, first of all, it has passed Chinese population. And it is estimated that in the next 30 years, the Indian economy is going to be bigger than that of China. Anyway, we can go into basic economics, but that's not what has brought me here today. So even when you are talking about foreign, what my brother Katesh was talking about, FIDs, you know, if I am going to invest in an area and there is a population, there is a market, I'll put more money there, because whatever I'll produce, it will be bought. If it is a smaller population, you have to wonder why you should even invest more.
Abdul, just pause there. So many graduated last week. Ocheno's Obi.
The problem is elites
Yeah,
call it?
you are the ones who was celebrating elites.
But when the content doesn't come out, when you listen to Chino, it doesn't seem to have said any meal at all.
I think
there's no need to respond to that one.
Yeah, I know. When the problem is when you are judged by somebody from Iganga or something.
Oh no, but when you're arguing about the same table.
Okay. Now, light moments aside,
leave schools
Oscar.
alone.
First of all, I want to congratulate the graduates on the achievements. I know it's not very easy to achieve that milestone, and especially the parents who sacrifice a lot, because 80% of those graduates have been on private sponsorship. So meaning parents have
probably more than 80%.
Probably more than 80%. Parents have been able to save money here, sometimes even sell what they have.
We have paid fees.
To pay fees and their children to have a better future. But my view has always been, and I've urged this out in Parliament several times, I've not succeeded to the extent I want. Let us look at the tigers. Economies are not necessarily built on degrees. No. If you look at how those countries took off, you need more of an artisan industry professionals, because in the history of this country, especially during the colonies and Bottle One, they try to do one thing. Say, look here, yes, you may have the university degrees, but you're going to have a big part of your population, younger people. What you need to teach them survival skills. That's why we established technical colleges all over the country, real colleges. OO is here. In the neighborhood of the school he went to, there was that Iganga Technical College, just in the neighborhood. I think maybe less than half a kilometer from Iganga, yes. And what was the purpose, Oscar, of those technical colleges? One, at primary level, there are many young people who will not go beyond P7. How do we tap that people, give them the necessary skills for them to survive, whether carpentry, tailoring, mechanics, mention it. Then you go to senior 4. There is again almost 40% of the students finishing senior 4 will not go beyond senior 4. You tap them and give them the skills. Then you go to high school senior 6 and you even tap them, those who usually went to colleges like Chambogo, and they had finished senior 6, they could not go to universities, and therefore they could go and get a degree in diploma in mechanical engineering, and they can survive. And some of them today, they would be looking at things like repairing these phones. You don't need a degree to repair a mobile phone. Each and every village today, there could be a need for a repairer of a phone. And these are the sort of emphasis, in my view, if I was at the helm of education, that's what I would be promoting.
You're in Parliament.
I said I've urged out several times, but I may be urging out one of Opondo from Iganges, yes. They don't listen.
You're doing 25 years in Parliament.
Yes, and you see,
put this in Parliament.
That's why, for those who believe in religion, they teach every day, on Sunday, since the world goes, and on Fridays. But people continue committing crimes and obscenities and atheism, like So to me, what we need, Oscar, is a pyramid. Because the majority of our people, the young people, go dropping up at certain levels. And the degrees should only be at the apex up there. So, and when you look at figures, I don't know what them last time we hear, the number of kids who were enrolled at primary 1, but they have not gone beyond P7. I think they have gone to some millions.
Yeah. The figure reported in this week is 797,000.
Who didn't
sat PLE? Who sat?
No, but how many 7 years ago enrolled?
No. We have been having a total primary school about 8 million, 9, they're about a total primary school.
So, no, what we are saying.
How many started P1?
Yes, and those who have not been able to.
You could say maybe 2 million or so. But
2. And those who have even reached P7 and are not going maybe around a million also.
The ones who sat are 797, which is an improvement. A few years ago, it was down at 600 and something. Now it's been going up.
So, but the point is there are many people stopping at that level, and we should be able or even before, we should be able to capture them at a technical college level, and you could go on and on up to university. So we need to rethink the people who are really, because now I see a lot of phrase about universities, degree in degree in hair, degree in air, degree in something, degree in chapadola, degree in so all those sort. Yes, we may need them, but we don't need 100 graduates of degree in Lusoga. You get it? Yeah. So to me, we really need to rethink our education, and our investment should be in the technical colleges.
Let me cross over to the yellows. Opondo.
No, I associate myself with some of the comments made by my colleagues already. But one of the things NRM had a battle with, the Ugandan elites, 86-95. You remember our battles with the Makerere elites, the guilty presidency of Norbert Mao, Mukasa Mbide, and so on and so forth. When the Honorable Manya Michaga was the Minister of Education. Because our education has been built on elitism, it has taken us a very long time to shift how do we fund education? Which levels should we fund? Primary education, secondary education was completely private. When you go to the colleges up in Strong About and Makerere, that now was free. The government was providing everything free. And then NRM said, no, let us reduce on public funding of colleges and universities. We put more money, one, in universal health. We put more money in universal primary education, so that all the children who should be in school should be in primary schools, so that we raise the level of literacy. It has taken us these 39 years to move a step. I think if we could make that decisive step, Abudu, particularly the executive and parliament, who allocate and appropriate resources, we would do a better job. Over the years, we have expanded actually technical colleges. We have increased the numbers from where the Cheno likes providing. Technical institutes, if you go around, I think virtually every district has a technical institute by government.
Has.
Virtually, particularly the older districts, the vocationals. And now recently, the president, I think, not wanting to fight so much with the bureaucracies, he took the route of skills hubs. Because the skills hubs, you actually don't need even P7, as long as you are willing to go and learn bakery, tailoring, leather tanning, and things like those, cobblering and things, carpentry and joinery. So he took that route. I don't know if it is sustainable. Maybe eventually, when the president probably is no longer, those skills hubs will be transferred, ought to be transferred, in my view, to the Ministry of Education. And then, in the Ministry of Education, I think we need to have a strong technical and vocational department, and in Parliament as well. And then we can now externalization of labor in itself. I don't find any problem, but also where is the mindset? I think we have some. And by the way, if you go to these technical colleges of government, the ones I'm talking about, you go to Masaka, you go to Nakasongola here, you go to Jinja, the intake is at about 30%. Why? Because with the parents and the guardians and the children themselves, we are not encouraging. We want every child to go to Busoga University to study Lusoga. You remember the battle I've had with the Buganda Kingdom, who pushed through to teach Luganda. And then the ones from the Ankole Belt also came, also want Rujakara to be taught at university level. And we spent a lot of time in that. So we need to push parents and guardians, proper, how do you call it, teaching children, directing them where the future lies. Career guidance. But as we stand now, everybody wants to go for a degree. Now, look at the areas of Uganda.
Aspires.
Look at the areas of Uganda where most of the people seeking externalization of labor are coming from. First and foremost, they are from the central region. Other areas do, yes, but the majority are here. And what will they do? What will the children, the people in Uganda here do? They sell land, 10, 30, 50 million sometimes, to get passport, to get a visa, to get air ticket, and you ask them, you say, this 30 million you have spent to go to Dubai to earn 800,000 shillings a month. If you started a kiosk, if you started a cottage, and you are consistent for the next 5 years, wouldn't you make better money? They will think that you are callous. You don't have a feeling for them. 2, some of them are going for skills jobs, but the overwhelming majority don't go for skills jobs. They go for dishwashing, like our university graduates in 1988 who are running away from the communism of NRM. They went to wash dishes in the UK. A university graduate was going to teach.
In 1988, most of them were actually
exiles, were refugees.
No, but a number of them also went to wash dishes. And you ask them, and are there no dishes in Uganda to wash? Are there no toilets in Uganda to
Do they
scrub?
pay well?
No. Leave the question of payment first. But are there no dishes in Uganda to wash, so that you go and seek to wash dishes in the Middle East?
Well, the majority of us, our time, went to South Africa.
I'm raising. So we need to deal with the mindset of the young people, but the mindset of the young person needs to be dealt with from the mindset of the parent, of the guardians. Many people finish university here. You can hear people now crying about it, that they want to go to America, they want to go. Abu Dandai, since we completed the university, I don't think we have ever thought, and we have had opportunity to say, even, and yet we are the ones who completed the university at the hard times, the beginning of the NRM, who could have gone. But there are many colleagues of ours who left. They went down South Africa, Swaziland, apartheid South Africa, and so on, and Europe. They are now beginning to come back. And I remember we used to teach them, we said, you have gone, but you will come back and you will have to fix this pothole in Uganda. They are now coming back when they are 55 and they have nowhere to start. The social security system in the UK is not supporting them. They run back here.
I'd like to put to you that those are the minority. That's not an average Ugandan you're talking about.
No. There was a time when the bulk of people completing university or education in Uganda thought going to work outside, running away from Uganda, the difficulties of Uganda was a better option. And we told them, and time will come when you come back. But
many of them are still there and thriving.
How many of them?
Don't know
how many of them can? How many of them?
I know for sure. They have Ugandan associations.
No.
They these days even have NUP groups or NRM groups. Very many.
Those are the minority.
Opondo even sends them money for that UNA convention.
No. But let us look at the job market.
Conclude all, then we go to leading.
Our economy is growing. Yes, there are people who are looking for the good opportunities outside, but the overwhelming majority of Ugandans are here. Those
They are the ones
factories,
you need to address, yes.
Yes. When you look at the people who go outside and the people who remain here, who are the majority? The majority are here and are working here.
So you must talk about those.
What Katesh talked about. The thousands of factories, the thousands of cottage industries. If you go to Lira today, you go to Gulu today, you go to Soret today, you go to Mbarara, you go to Masaka, you go to the areas of Wakiso, Mukono, Kampala, there are many cottage industries coming up, and that's what we need